With mandatory minicamp officially in the books, what was the overall feeling of the offseason workout program for the Raiders? That plus a whole lot more comes up on Friday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for June 14th, 2024.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. Make sure you subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast to get the latest edition of the show as soon as it becomes available. As always, if you're checking us out on YouTube, you know we appreciate that. The show grows each and every day, and that's because of the support of Raider Nation and because of my man Ari. Ari does a great job each and every day making sure we're on YouTube, we're looking good, we're sounding good, we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. So we shout him out. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And of course, we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line 707-654-4693. Plenty of feedback coming up in segment number 3, your calls and texts. So we'll do that as we close out the show really strong, close out the week really strong. That'll be segment number 3. Segment number 2, I want to talk about this Raiders coaching staff and why they give me a lot of hope as far as this team goes in 2024 and hopefully beyond that as well. That'll be segment number 2. Here in segment number 1, just news and notes, and we'll just jump right into it. And we found out on Thursday, matter of fact, pretty early. I got to the Raiders facility about 6:30 in the morning. I was helping out Vinny Bonsignore at the morning tailgate. He was broadcasting all the way live from there, so I got there about 6:30 in the morning. Found out about 8:15. We were supposed to speak with Antonio Pierce around 8:45. We got the text message from Will Kiss that, well, the third day of mandatory minicamp was actually going to get canceled. But please don't report it right now just because AP is going to speak with the players and he wants to be able to surprise them and let them know that he's letting them take off a day early as opposed to having an extra day of practice. So we didn't talk about it. AP came in, spoke with us for about 25 minutes, and then it was done. It was in the books, and the Raiders offseason workout programs was over. Next time we'll actually see them will be in Costa Mesa starting around July 23rd. So my overall thoughts on the offseason workout program, the first under Antonio Pierce, was that it was very energetic. You saw a lot of teaching going on. You saw the players look like they were very much bought in. Right. I go back to teaching and coaching. It looked like all the players from our vantage point were really focused in on the coaches and trying to make sure that they did the very best that they could at whatever that was they were supposed to be doing at the time. Individual drills, team drills, whatever the case may be. You saw a lot of competition. It just seemed like it was at a quicker pace. It seemed like that there was more purpose to it, and there was just a ton of teaching and coaching that was going on. And there's a lot of coaches that are out there. Of course, we'll talk about the coaches coming up in segment number 2. But all in all, I thought it was a pretty good off-season workout program. Again, I've only been around the team and training camp for, since 2021. So a handful of training camps and off-season workout programs. But this one to me just felt like it just felt a little bit different, felt a little bit more energetic, and really saw a lot of smiles and energy and excitement from the players' faces. And I think that goes a long way, especially with the last couple training camps that we've been involved in, knowing, who was in charge of it is Josh McDaniels, and knowing that the players weren't really having as much fun, and, that the practices were going longer and they felt like their time was being wasted. I never got that sense from any of the players. So I thought that for a first off-season workout program, I thought that there was a lot of attention to detail. I thought there was a lot of pride that the players were taking from rookie camp to the 3 weeks of OTAs to the final week of mandatory minicamp. I thought they did a really good job. Does that mean that the offense was fantastic? No. As I mentioned before, mandatory minicamp, they had a couple bad days of offense. It wasn't looking very good. The defense is humming around, but it's supposed to, right? It's the third year in Patrick Graham. They all know what they're doing. They're not thinking. They're just able to run around and go out there and make plays, and that's exactly what they were doing. The offense, on the other hand, they're thinking. They're trying to figure out this new playbook. I will say the one thing that I thought was a big deal that we found out on Thursday when we were talking to Antonio Pierce is that the Raiders' offense, the whole offensive playbook is already installed. Said that he confirmed that with Luke Getsy on Thursday morning. Hey, all our offense is already installed. Yes. I think that's a big deal. They're not adding more. They're going with what they have in the book. They're working with it right now. And when they get to training camp, they're going to see what works and what doesn't. And stuff that doesn't work, they don't mind taking it out and saying, you know what, this doesn't work. This group's not going to do this. This group's not going to be able to execute this, so let's not try to force it. I think that's really smart when it comes to getting to know your personnel and who you're working with. So it sounds like So far, so good, and the team is really happy with where they're at right now. I got a couple sound bites that I want you to hear from Antonio Pierce, as he did, as I mentioned, meet with us on Thursday, spent about 25 minutes, gave us a lot of really good time, and you can hear him maturing. Right, when he met with us on November 1st, him and Champ Kelly sat there in the Intermountain Health Performance Center. He just, all his answers were short. They were very, as a matter of fact, right, you understood it was attention to detail. You knew he meant business. He had energy in his voice, but his answers were really short. Now his answers are a lot more detailed. You're getting even a lot more than we were getting before from Antonio Pierce, and that's just him maturing as a head coach. So the first soundbite that I want, and I only have a couple for you. First one I want you to hear is Antonio Pierce just describing his first offseason and mandatory minicamp as the head coach of the Raiders.
Productive. I asked the coaches from the jump to put X's and O's to the side a little bit in offseason as we start up in phase 1 and 2 and get to know one another. Coaches on coaches, coaches to players, and then when the players came in, players to players. Wanted to really build that chemistry, that continuity, that trust, accountability, communication that we talked about all offseason. I thought it went well. When we got on the grass, you can see the excitement, the passion, the love, the effort to play the game. I think the best part about the offseason, you're still in school. And it's in a sense, when I say you're in school, you're learning. There's been adjustments that the coaches have come up with. We have new staff, obviously, on offense. Defensively, we added some new pieces in the coaching staff, a lot of good ideas. And then you want to put it on the grass and see how it comes out and how it works with the players. And that's the best part about it, because then now over the next 5 weeks, as Patrick Graham would say, you get in the lab. Luke, you get in the lab. Tom, myself, we get in the lab, and we make the adjustments necessary for what team we have now. Because when we first started in phase 2, we didn't even have a draft. We didn't have the rookie class. We didn't have all these other pieces. And then you put it all together and you see how it starts to gel. And your identity and the look of your team starts to mold into what you want it to be.
So there you go. You hear AP talk about the P word. Normally on this show, when we talk about the P word, we're talking about the playoffs. That's not what we're talking about. He said productive. That's how he described his first offseason workout program. Productive. He's happy with where they're at right now. He knows the offense isn't going to be ahead of the defense. Doesn't matter that an offense in June is not ahead of the defense. And he's absolutely right, especially when you're learning a new offense and the defense has been there. And this is great to say, the third year under Patrick Graham. It's great to hear about that kind of continuity, right? That they're not turning over coach after coach after coach after coach. And if they do turn over a coach, hopefully in the future, that's because that coach got a better job somewhere else, right? Got promoted somewhere else and has an opportunity to either be a head coach, defensive coordinator, maybe an offensive coordinator, or whatever. They just continue to advance their career because of what they're doing with the Raiders. Because if that happens, that means that the Raiders are winning a lot of games. Another soundbite that I wanted you to hear from Antonio Pierce as he met with us on Thursday was about who stood out in the wide receiver room. And the reason I bring this up is because we spent a lot of time on the show talking about X factors, guys who can really, help out, especially offensively. And we've had a lot of different players that we've talked about. And it's funny, on my radio show, I had asked about, guys on offense who we might not be talking about who we think could step up. And I mentioned Jacoby Myers. I think he's going to go from 800 yards and 8 touchdowns to over 1,000 yards this season. That's just my prediction. I was high on him last year when he signed with the Raiders, and I thought he was going to be a good, a compliment to Devontae Adams. He clearly was, but I think there's room for him to get even better. And a lot of people mentioned Trey Tucker as well, and I mentioned him as well with that speed. So it was pretty nice little tip of the cap to hear Antonio Pierce talk about the two wide receivers that stood out to him the most were Trey Tucker and Jacoby Myers. Check it out.
There's two guys I'm going to point out, and obviously the obvious ones, but one guy really stood out this offseason, Trey Tucker. Different dude. He looks different, acts different, runs different, catches the ball different. Don't look at the size. Don't mention that. Watch him play. He's the biggest guy out there. He had a hell of an offseason. Came back right after the offseason program, the Super Bowl, and got in here and started working and was here every day. Blazer, we know about the speed, but everything that we talked about working on, he took that to another level. And you can see the look in his eye of a confident player, of a guy that's just going to constantly get better. He's pushing. And the guy that's right next to him, who I get it, because you have Devontae, these guys kind of get put in the background. Jacoby. Jacoby is that guy. When you say, I need a dog, Jacoby's a dog. Jacoby's an alpha. Jacoby is fearless. Jacoby works probably as hard as any player on our team. And he's his commitment, and you saw this last year, his commitment in the run game speaks volumes. Because he could be easily a 100 reception, 1,000-yard receiver. But it's all those other things. It's those crackback blocks. It's those hits on the DN, the linebacker, getting his nose bloody, rolling up his sleeves, flexing on guys, setting the tone. His energy and presence might not say a lot, and you guys know him. He's kind of real slick and sly with his words. But when he speaks, you better listen because he's got some substance behind him. So those two guys have really taken a really good jump for us. It's been really good to see because we're not going to win this game with one person. We're going to win this game as a collective group at the wide receiver core, the tight end, running back, and the quarterback. It's not on just one guy. And we won't win or lose by that. And these guys have really bought into the team aspect that it takes all of us to do it. You know, I always talked about our superheroes putting on their capes. Well, I told the guys today, hey, those superheroes need some other guys to put some more capes on. We need some more capes in that room. And it's okay for Big Mike to step up. Brock Bowers, I don't care about a rookie. We're going to go. When he's ready to go, we're going to let him go. Right? Alex Madison, Zamir White, Amir. We got a lot of guys this offseason who have really relished in the role of competing and taking on that sense of ownership. Like, I'm not going to wait for something to happen. I'm going to go make it happen. And that's the difference I see in our team overall.
Just made me feel like we're not crazy, right? The conversation that we've had, the players that we've talked about quite a bit here on the show or on my radio show is Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker. Obviously, there's other guys that we talked about, but you hear the offseason that those two guys had in particular and what AP thinks about them. So, again, if Trey Tucker and that speed could really get cooking for the Raiders, that could make that offense that much better. And Jacoby Myers, like I said, I think he goes over 1,000 yards this season. Just something I just see my bones is what I feel when it comes to him. Again, he had 800 yards and 8 touchdowns in 2023. I think he has a chance to be a lot better in 2024. The final soundbite that I want you to hear from Antonio Pierce was on the special teams and the new kickoff rule. And that's because I've been talking about it a lot. They've been working on it a lot. So I asked him about all the work that they're putting in on special teams and the new kickoff rule and what he thinks about it.
Yeah, I'm not doing no demonstrations like Coach McMahon, but I really want to put an emphasis on it. First of all, we got some really good specialists between AJ and Daniel. I mean, we couldn't be blessed to have those two difference makers there. But obviously with the new rule, right? And it's a learning curve for all of us. We had the officials out here from the National Football League, and they were wide-eyed because nobody's seen this live yet. It looks good in practice, but that first preseason game, I think everybody needs to tune in for that opening kickoff to see what's about to happen because there's a lot of different variables that could go into it, and we said how it's being officiated, what different special teams coordinators are coming up with ideas. So I really want to emphasize that. But more importantly, we talked about this earlier, the development of this off-season program for me was our younger players and our special teams guy, because that's going to be the core group of our team. You know what Devontae's going to do. You know what Max Crosby's going to do and Christian Wilkins. But we need to give the guys that's going to make this team on special teams more opportunities to showcase that and give Tom the time to teach.
AP right there talking about special teams, and I'm telling you, they spend so much time working on special teams. And for anyone who might think that, oh, man, these guys are talking about special teams, nothing's going to happen, I'm telling you, it's going to be a game changer. It's something that I'm not going to stop focusing in on when we get to training camp at Costa Mesa. I can't wait to see how much they work on that. There's a few coaches around the league that I think are really going to excel. From what I've seen from the practice, though, the way that they're practicing it, I definitely think the Raiders are going to be really good at the new kickoff rule. And I think they're going to, really kind of maximize it. They're working on a lot of different scenarios, whether it's kickoff or kick return. They're doing that. John Bones Fossil up in Dallas. I think his name is John, but it's Bones Fossil. We know that, right? The Dallas special teams coordinator, been around the league for a long time. He's fantastic. I'm sure he'll figure out a way to maximize it. And then I look at John Harbaugh with the Baltimore Ravens. Of course, the Raiders play the Ravens week 2. I think he's going to do really well with it as well. A head coach that was a former special teams coach, or special teams coordinator. So I think he's going to do some really good things. But I'm sure plenty of coaches around the league are right now racking their brain on how they can maximize the new kickoff rule and how they're going to cover kickoffs. Again, I've said it so many times. Don't kick the ball in the air. Don't let the return team catch it with a running start, or you might be in trouble. Coming up in segment number 2, I want to talk about the Raiders coaching staff in general, my overall takeaway as we got to know those guys over the past, 4 or 5 weeks at Raiders OTAs and all their offseason workout plan. That's coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before I get to that, though, I do want to tell you about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. That's the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers to roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. With eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. I want to talk about the Raiders coaching staff. This is actually a conversation that I had in pretty good detail on my radio show on Thursday after speaking with Antonio Pierce at the Intermountain Health Performance Center. It got me thinking about all the different coaches over the course of the past few weeks that we've had an opportunity to talk to. You know, all the coaches that I come to the show and say, okay, today we're talking to defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, special teams coach. All right, today we're talking to cornerbacks coach, talking to safeties coach. We're talking to the offensive line coach. All right, today we're talking to the defensive line coach, talking to the special assistant. There are so many different coaches that the Raiders rolled out, and even a handful of assistants that they had rolled out on Tuesday and speak kind of in a group setting where it was about 5 or 6 of them at a time. Then they had about a 15-minute window. Then 5 or 6 more came in. I wasn't able to be a part of that because of my radio show. But just the way that the Raiders rolled all these different coaches out and the way we got an opportunity to speak with them and kind of understand who they are and to a certain extent even get to know them, it gets me pretty excited about this coaching staff. I've already been excited about Antonio Pierce. That's easy, right? I mean, he brings that juice each and every time we get a chance to talk to him. Obviously, we know what he did last year. He gave Raider Nation a lot of hope when he took over, reinstilled the Raider way, and that obviously is going to go a long ways. But from all the different coaches that they have, and especially all the energy, one of the things that stands out to me, and I know Vinny Bonsignora said this to me many times, the coaches of these particular rooms, whether it's James Craig, the offensive line coach, whether it's Ricky Manning, the cornerback coach, Gerald Alexander, the safeties coach, Rob Leonard. I'm a big Rob Leonard fan. Man, I'm telling you, I am a big fan of Rob Leonard. He's a guy that I will not be surprised when he's a defensive coordinator somewhere. You know, what he does, when I'm able to stand there and watch them practice and him run the drills and the way that at his size, he ain't much bigger than me. At his size, he gets in there and he's on the tackling sled and he's doing this and that. He's showing them how the drill's supposed to look. You know, get your butt down, get your head up, get your arm. He's just into it. He's so intense. And think who he's working with. He's working with Max Crosby. He's working with Christian Wilkins. He's working with Tyree Wilson, with Malcolm Coots, Adam Butler, right? John Jenkins, guys like that. I mean, all these big-time players, and he's smaller than all these guys, but he's out there just in the middle of the mix and just really showing them what to do. And, do it again. Run it back. Come on, have competition. Let's go. Go with a faster pace. Who loves football? Get one more rep. Like, that energy that he brings and the way that he connects with the players, and I'm able to see it up close and personal. I'm literally standing right there. Anyone who follows me on Twitter, @yourboyQ254, has probably seen me tweet out videos and pictures, mainly videos, of the drills that the defense is doing, and namely the defensive line. But then you have guys like Marvin Lewis, who don't really need to be there. He's already got the skins on the wall. He coached in the NFL for a very long time. If he doesn't want to coach, he doesn't have to. But he's allowing his knowledge of what he's learned over the past 30-plus years in the NFL to help AP, who's a young coach, a young head coach in the NFL, right? Joe Philbin, same thing. Been around the league for a very long time, so he can, pick their brains as well. It just, to me, when I look at the landscape, from guys with a lot of experience to guys that don't have a lot of experience, but they also may be former players, right? And look, Gerald Alexander, he's going to be a defensive coordinator sooner rather than later, I promise you. Just what he's able to do with the safeties. I know, talking to guys that cover the Pittsburgh Steelers, they said that the Steelers were a little saddened when Gerald Alexander decided to leave the organization and join AP. I think he's got a really good blend of coaches, and it just feels like they all match their room, whether that's Cadillac Williams with the running backs, whether it's Ricky Manning with the cornerbacks. I mean, when he met with us, man, he was like, yeah, you can say it. We're a little crazy. We're a little nuts, right? We have, these tendencies, this, that, and the other. I mean, he understands the room. And the other thing about it is Antonio Pierce allows them to be them and allows them to own their room. So it's not like they're just the secondary coach by name, right? Oh, hey, you're the cornerbacks coach. Okay, but it's about what I tell you to do. Even Patrick Graham, right? You can see that he's let his hair down a little bit, right? He's been free to do more and allow himself to, do what he does best, which is become a defensive coordinator, be a defensive coordinator. He's going to be a head coach at some point. There's no doubt about it. He'll be a head coach. And maybe, Gerald Alexander or maybe Rob Leonard will end up being the eventual defensive coordinators for the Silver and Black once Patrick Graham gets that head coaching job. The Raiders put in a really good year defensively. Make no mistake about it, he's going to get a head coaching job somewhere in the National Football League. It's just the inevitable, right? And he's going to have earned that, and that's a good thing. But just with what AP's brought in, who he's brought in, and the way he allows them to be them is so important. Just one of the things he had to say about his coaching staff when he met with us on Thursday was about that blend of the experienced coaches and the younger guys as well. Here's the reasoning why, in Antonio Pierce's words, what he had to say about that.
Yeah, just because of time, technology. You think Marvin Lewis can go in there and go crazy on that computer and Rob Ryan and Joe Philbin? No. Then you got some guys that, straight out of college and some younger guys coming from the college ranks and other places that are really tech savvy. Then you got guys that have been head coaches, coordinators at different levels and been in different systems. And some systems that we really studied over the last 2 years prior to me taking over. You look at a guy like Robbie Leonard with Baltimore, and then Gerald Alexander with Pittsburgh. You talking about guys that came from organizations and places that play football the right way. And the more intel and people you can grab from those places, the better we are. And more importantly, good people. And I think for all of us, and I talk about it, we always say we got to coach the players, but coaches need to be coached. And when you have the expertise of a Marvin Lewis, a Joe Philbin, the years of a Rob Ryan, which I'm sure was an entertaining conversation yesterday for you guys, man, how can you pass that up? And I'm really excited that they want to be here next to myself and the rest of our staff because they can do other things, right? Does Marvin Lewis really need to coach? Not really. Joe Philbin, not really. Rob Ryan, they've been in the game 30-plus years, all those gentlemen. So to be in the meeting room and just to hear them talk, and not just always to myself, but to the receiver coach, or to our young office assistant, whoever it may be, just for them to drop that knowledge is critical. And then at the end of the day, you want to see these guys prosper and get an opportunity someday to either be in my position or a coordinator or have their own room.
So you can hear the forward thinking right there. Okay, some of the younger guys, they need to be on the staff to be able to tell us about, the latest technologies and stuff that Marvin Lewis isn't going to be an expert on and Joe Philbin's not going to be an expert on. But a younger cat will know, right? Just fresh out of college or, fresh out of the league, just playing for a little while and understand things, right? How many of us don't have kids that know things, way more when it comes to technology than we do? How many of our kids know more about our cell phones than we know about our cell phones? Probably all of them, right? I know mine do. Right? I couldn't tell you half the things my phone does. I know it does a lot, but I know what I use it for. Pretty basic things, right? I know how to do email, text, Twitter, too much Twitter, obviously, and obviously other things as well. But, our kids know how to do stuff like way more stuff than we know how to do on most of our electronic devices, right? That's just kind of how it is. But then again, there's the older blend when it comes to the Marvin Lewises that been there, done that, and know the coaching, and so and can help out AP, who's a younger head coach in the league. It just makes a lot of sense of why they did what they did, and they brought in as many coaches as they brought in. And you'll hear AP talk about how many they brought in, 29 of them. But here's Antonio Pierce on him empowering his assistants to allow themselves to be themselves, not micromanage. Why he does that?
Yeah, because I can't do everything. I can't be in every room. Just like right now, we got meetings going on. I can't be in there. But it really started with our staff, having them present in front of the entire staff, different projects, both offense versus defense versus offense, and special teams, getting some of our younger coaches to speak up and talk. As you can see, we hired a really good staff, and it's a lot of us, 29 coaches to be exact. And there's a lot of knowledge there. And it's a shame that if we don't share that knowledge, not just to the coaches, but to our players. So I want to make sure that they know that their voice can be heard, they can speak, but at the same time, there's a time and place, and everybody knows their role. But I'll be a fool not to have the gentleman that I brought in this building speak and have that empowerment to talk to the players and vice versa.
Just think that it's a very smart approach that AP's taking. I think it's a very comfortable in your own skin approach, right? He's not concerned about a coach trying to take his shine, not a coach trying to, do better than AP or not do it. I mean, he's very comfortable with these guys, and trust them. We talked about that on the show. Trust, how important that is for the staff. And if you're going to have a coaching staff of 29 guys, you've got to be able to trust them to do their job. And if you could do that, then you're good to go. And that's what he's done, from the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, all the other coaches that I've talked about, even the lower level coaches, right? Even his son, who's basically at the very, very bottom of the totem pole when it comes to coaches. He's going to have to work his way up. And that's what Antonio Pierce has said. I can respect that. But it just feels like this coaching staff, top to bottom, is in a really good place. And when you hear them talk and you get to know them and you hear the energy and you hear the way that they're connected with the players, it just feels different than the last coaching staff, the coaching staff before that, the coaching staff before that. There were some good coaches here and there, but it feels like this is the right blend of former players, guys with tons of experience as far as coaching, right? Newer blood in the coaching, world. And it just seems right. And it gives me a lot of hope. Now, hope doesn't mean that they're going to win 10 games. It doesn't. Hope doesn't mean they're going to win 11 games. It just lets me feel like they're going to be set up in the right position to succeed. It's going to be up to the players to go out there and execute. Lincoln Kennedy says it all the time. Coaches coach, players play. So the players got to go out there and do their job, obviously. But, we talk about it all the time. We talked about it a lot with Josh McDaniels, and it felt like, he didn't really necessarily put all the players in position to succeed. Instead, he put them in position to do what he wanted them to do. This coaching staff, to me, feels like a staff that understands what the players do well, what they don't do well, and they're not going to put them in position to not succeed. That's more than half the battle. You put the players in position to succeed. It's up to them to go out there and execute. But it just feels like this is the right blend of coaches. All 29 of them, right? They play a role, and it seems like they're going to be very important moving forward. I'm pretty excited about what this staff looks like and what this staff can do with those players. Right now, it's 90 men. By the end of training camp and preseason, it'll be down to 53. What's on your mind? Your calls and texts next, 707-654-4693. They're coming up in segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast as we close out the week and close out the show here on the Locked On Raiders podcast. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts draft that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Let's start off with a text from Gaber Raider in Canada. It says, Q, been a long-time listener since 2018. I might be the only Canadian to listen to your Las Vegas radio show daily, and I hope you can read this on the podcast. You're my first listen every morning. I appreciate everything you do for the nation. You're a legend and on pace for the Hall of Fame of Raider Media members. I've been a fan since the late 90s, watching the Raiders every Sunday with my dad, Mo. My dad was a true fan going back to the 70s. It was Monday Night Football when Otis Sistrunk was announced as Otis Sistrunk from the University of Mars. That moment hooked him, and the legends like the Snake, Madden, and Casper sealed the deal. Unfortunately, my dad suddenly passed in his sleep and left us all too early. As we approach the season, it's tough to swallow not having him next to me on Sundays, hearing him shout, "Get him, Max!" But just like the morning he passed, I'll listen to the Locked On Raiders podcast, and I'll watch our Raiders Week 1 beat those Charger bums, because that's what he would want. If you can give Mo Carbone a shout-out, it would mean the world. Thanks, Q. That's from Gaber Raider, Canada. And Gaber, thanks so much for the text. I appreciate you. Sorry for the loss, and glad that you were able to share those moments and those memories with your dad, and you still have them in your mind right now. That's what's important, Rand, is you have those memories, and you know exactly what he'd want you to do. And sometimes I'm sure when you think about your pops, I'm sure it just makes you put a smile on your face, right? Especially this weekend with Father's Day coming up. I'm sure that that's a tough weekend for you. So we definitely shout out Mo. Glad that he was a Raider fan, and love the story of what got him hooked, and love the story of you being hooked now and being a fan as well. So thanks so much. I appreciate that I could be a part of your daily life and help bring a little Raiders conversation to it. And as long as I play a little small role, that's all that matters to me. So thanks so much for chiming in. Thanks so much for sharing your story. And, have a blessed weekend this weekend. I know it's going to be tough with it being Father's Day weekend. But, again, just know, as I tell anyone who shares their story with us, Raider Nation's got your back. We're one big family. We don't always act like it, but we're one big family, and we definitely have your back. Thanks so much for the text. Up next, got a call from OG Raider. He's calling to talk about what he thinks this year's Raiders team is and why. Here he is, OG Raider.
Hey, Q, this is OG Raider from OG is for Ogden. I'm just going to call in and just everything you've been talking about, and then you talked about today about how the the offense is way behind the defense. And then I hear other callers come in and say we're going to win 10 wins. Look, man, I hate to be a negative Nancy. There is 0% chance we win 10 games next year. 0. We're a 5-win team, and then we're going to go out and sign Dak Prescott, which I'm not sure where I feel about that, but that's what I feel they're doing. They didn't really go after a quarterback in the draft. They tried for McDaniels. There was no trade partner for that. They didn't try to trade up and get in, Penix. Like, that's what I feel like is going to happen. They're just roll with O'Connell and Minshew. 5-win team. I hate it. It's my soul to say this, but we are a 5-win team even with this defense. And the defense is going to get wore down. And it sucks because I got so much hope and pride in this team. I've been a long-time Raider fan. Long time. And it just hurts going into the season knowing that we're a 5-win team. You can disagree with me, and if you talk about it on the air, tell me where your differences are. But O'Connell and Minshew cannot do it. Brock Bowers was a bad pick. I don't care what anybody says. Incredible player. Just immaculate. Bad pick for the Raiders. He does not help us. He will not help us with our quarterbacks. So, all right, brother. Hey, just want to say, too, I love your show. I love what you do. I love when you talk about personal stuff and when people send in stuff and say, hey, this happened, and then you respond to it. I love what you do. So you just keep doing what you do. Love what you do. OG Raider out.
OG, thanks for the call. Appreciate you as always. And it's okay not to feel confident in this team, right? I mean, it's cool to question this team. There's been year in and year out. Look, I mean, before I ever did a podcast, before I ever did a radio show, I mean, I was rocking the silver and black jersey, right? I was watching the games just like you're watching the games. And I know there's a lot of times when I got fired up, I got excited because this player was going to make the difference and this player was going to make the difference, or this coach was going to make the difference, or this coaching staff was going to make the difference, right? I mean, there's all kind of different reasons why this team was going to be that best team. When John Gruden returned the second time, there you go. That's the secret sauce. I mean, I get it. So, if you're skeptical right now, that's fine. I do think that they're going to win more than 6.5 games, which is the win total projection right now. The over-under, I think that they're going to go over that. They've done that, 3 out of the last 4 years. Now, does it mean that they're going to win 10 games and be a playoff team? No, not at all. You feel like a 5-win team, if they don't get some, help offensively and the offense doesn't click, and they can't get off, get off or stay on the field and keep the defense off the field. If they have to do consistent 3-and-outs, yeah, they could lose a lot of games. But I look at it at the other end of things. Like, I feel like that they're a lot better than they were last year, and they rattled off 8 wins. And I know that it's not the same schedule. I know they're not playing the same quarterbacks. I know a lot of things have to go their way to get around the 8, 9, 10 win total. I tend to go that way, but totally understand where you're at, and it's a wait and see thing. And until they prove it to you and prove it to us, it's fair to feel that way. So thanks for the call. It's not, again, not a bad thought and not going to put you down for your thoughts. So thanks so much again. Like I said, hopefully you have a really good weekend. Up next, got a text from Peter in Winnipeg. Man, there's a lot of Canada that's represented, huh? He says, hey, Q, Peter from Winnipeg. I've got 2 questions here for you that go hand in hand with each other. What kind of season numbers-wise do you think Aiden would need to be considered the long-term answer at quarterback? 30 touchdowns, 10 to 12 interceptions. If he doesn't have a good season, do you think it would be worth it for the team to make a big push for Dak if he makes it to free agency? Personally, I'd like to see Aiden take a big step, but if he doesn't, I'd like to see the team go after Dak. We seem to have all the pieces besides the quarterback. That's Peter in Winnipeg. Thanks so much for the text. I appreciate you. And, yeah, I don't know, man. As far as Aiden and numbers, I have no idea. I don't want to put a number on it because numbers could be deceiving. Right, you can get a bunch of late touchdowns that don't matter, like garbage time touchdowns, and maybe you don't turn the ball over that much, but maybe you don't throw the ball that much, right? I mean, it's just there's so much that goes into it. I think that's a wait and see thing. And first, he's got to win the job because there's a guy named Gardner Minshew who's going to be fighting for the job as well. Now, I think O'Connell's going to get the job, but he's got to earn it, and it starts at the end of July. in training camp in Costa Mesa. So I think we have to wait and see on that. If the team goes out and wins a bunch of games, that's how he could be the long-term guy. If the Raiders go out and win 10 games and he's a complementary piece and he's able to put Devontae in the right position and Jacoby and Trey Tucker and Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer, right? If he's able to make those guys the weapons that we believe they can, I think that'll speak volumes for itself. As far as Dak goes, it's funny. I mean, when we just found out about Trevor Lawrence and the money he just made, man, that's ridiculous money, right? $200 million fully guaranteed, $143 million at signing, right? I mean, the dude just broke the bank. So he's at $55 million per year. Literally, if Dak hits free agency, and I'm not saying he's going to, but if he does, he's going to get paid closer to $60 million a year. Think about this. Jared Goff got $53 million a year. He's a good quarterback. Trevor Lawrence, $55 million a year. Good quarterback. Doesn't have a winning record, but a good quarterback, right? So Dak will probably get close to $60 million. I think you have to ask yourself, if you want the Raiders to go after Dak, if they don't have their guy in Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew, are you okay and comfortable with the Raiders paying $60 million a year for a quarterback named Dak Prescott? If you can answer that question and you feel comfortable with it, then by all means go for it. I'm not real high on the Raiders signing Dak Prescott to a $60 million a year deal, but that's just me. And who knows where they'll be when it's all said and done. If they'll be in a position to draft a guy, that would be the way to do it. If O'Connell's not your guy, it'd be ideal to be able to draft a guy, have him on a rookie deal, and build around him. But that might not be the option. It wasn't the option this year, right? The Raiders picked 13th. They weren't in position to pick high enough to go get their guy. So it's a good question for sure, but you have to ask yourself when it comes to Dak, $60 million a year, are you comfortable with that? If you are, then by all means, go for it. Up next, got a call from Raider X. He's calling to talk about some of the stuff he's reading and hearing and has a few concerns when it comes to the Raiders. Here he goes. He explains here. It's Raider X.
Hey, Q, this is Raider X. Just calling in on some of the information and some of the, readings and things that are coming out of the Raiders camp. I just wanted to kind of chime in and get some feedback of, the thoughts. Obviously, for the last, year and a half, we've had some concerns about the offense. I'm glad that the defense is, picking it up and is going to be a formidable piece, hopefully, a very, very dominant piece. But I just have the fear that we're going to be, again, a one-sided team, a one-sided, lopsided team. There's from years ago, we had the defense, and then we have, always the offense. We only wanted that defense to succeed. Now we have the defense, but here we go again. We don't have an offense that's either equal or complementary to sit there and work as a unified team, as a group. Just my concerns is that, obviously, we can talk about that the defense is so dominant, so making that offense look bad. Or is it just the offense, is just not up to par? And lastly, I want you to kind of chime in. What you see, is it the timing, the schemes, or is it, again, going back to the mobility because the pressure and the ability for the quarterback to go out there and actually make plays on the fly? Because, Minshew can move around a little bit, and if he's not having success either, and he's, either at or below what Aiden O'Connell's doing, I'm concerned. Just going to get your feedback, just a talking point. I appreciate it, brother. You have a fantastic day. Raider X out.
Raider X, thanks so much for the call. I appreciate you. Thanks for your concerns as well, and they're okay, right? I think the biggest concern will arise during training camp, right? They just look like the team in general right now offensively is just thinking, and they should be thinking, right? I mean, seeing a couple days of mandatory minicamp, they're going to be thinking. But also remember, the offensive line doesn't have pads on. The defense knows that they're not running the ball, so they're going to pin their ears back and try to get after the quarterback. So there's a lot of elements. I wouldn't overthink what was going on in mandatory minicamp, like I tried to stress many times. The sky's not falling because the offense didn't look great. The offense didn't look great, and that's just a reality of it, right? So, in training camp, while we're there, and I'm starting to do shows and talk about, well, this is how it looked today, and this is how it looked. And if I start talking about no quarterbacks separated themselves, then I think that there's time to get concerned, right? Because, again, ultimately, for the Raiders to be successful this year, the offense is going to have to play its part. The defense is going to do the heavy lifting. They're no doubt the strongest part of the team. They are the strength. but the offense is going to have to complement them in some capacity. Thanks so much for the call. I appreciate you. We'll close out with a text from 307 Raider. Hey, Q, 307 Raider here. I just want to say have a great vacation next week. Hopefully things go smoothly. Nobody steals your stuff, etc., since that has happened to you before, along with other mishaps. So I hope it goes well. You have a great time wherever you're going. Safe travels, Q. P.S. Raiders quarterback room is better than Denver's. I don't know why the league and media always give the Broncos love. I'd be way more comfortable with Gardner or O'Connell than Zach Wilson, which is looking like he is the favorite right now in Denver. Just saying, go Raiders. Raider Nation for life. That's 307 Raider. And yeah, as far as Denver goes, I mean, sooner rather than later, Bo Nix is going to be the guy. Zach Wilson's not the guy, right? And Jarrett Stidham, well, we all know what Jarrett Stidham is. I think Jarrett Stidham's a good quarterback. I don't think that he's a franchise quarterback. I didn't think he was a franchise quarterback when he was with the Raiders. I just thought he did some good things, and he could have been a good backup. But obviously, without Josh McDaniels being around anymore, it doesn't really matter. I was actually surprised when Denver signed him to the deal that they did, but they did that pretty quickly. So obviously, Sean Payton saw something in him. I feel a lot more better with O'Connell and Minshew as well than any of those guys. But again, I mean, Sean Payton's going to have an opportunity to work with his guy, and his guy is going to be Bo Nix, and see if he really is that guy or if he's just a good college quarterback at Oregon. We'll see. As far as vacation, yeah, we take off on actually Thursday. So I'll be around for a couple days doing my radio show and obviously the podcast. Later in the week, starting on Thursday, we'll have best of shows until I get back on July 1st. But yeah, definitely looking forward to the vacation. And whenever I travel with the wife, I never have issues traveling. It's just when I travel by myself. When I'm working and I travel by myself, something goes wrong. So maybe it's just a me thing, right? So maybe I need to stop traveling by myself. That's what always happens. But yeah, we're looking forward to vacation. I don't go on very many. I usually do one a year. Basically, we base our whole lives around football season, and that's just how it goes. You know, when you're in this business, that's what you do. I'm okay with that. I love it. She understands it. So that's how we rock. So yeah, next week, later at the end of next week, when we head off for vacation, it's going to be something where I get to unplug. I won't worry about Twitter. I won't worry about anything work-related. We'll be all good to go and get a little chance to decompress, just like the Raiders are decompressing right now before they get ready for training camp. I'm going to do the same thing, decompress before training camp. Then we'll be in Costa Mesa, California. So thanks so much for that text. I do appreciate you. Still got a call from Raider Eddie in Denver, a text from Ohio Raider in the 419. We'll get that on Monday's show. Hopefully everyone has a fantastic weekend. Have a great Father's Day on Sunday. Shout out to all the fathers out there. Shout out to Raider Nation. Take care of your fathers this weekend, and maybe have some good Raider memories. Share some Raider memories on Sunday. We'll have a few conversations about Father's Day on Monday's show. Plus, we'll have some news and notes. Of course, we'll have your calls and texts. We'll do all that on Monday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Until then, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family, and even your father. And most importantly, as always, just win, baby.